We've worked our whole lives, saved and invested just to achieve financial freedom, and been led to believe that instead of painting the perfect financial picture, everyone's plan is the same. But the truth is, no one is like you, and you deserve a financial strategy just as unique as you are. How do you navigate the complexities and volatility of a financial environment that just never sits still? And how do you find the guidance you need? Who do you trust with the wisdom to paint your financial masterpiece? You've arrived. This is the Wealth Council. And thanks so much for joining us on the Wealth Council. I'm Brad Johansson. The Council's knowledge, your wealth. Joined by advisors from around the country to answer some of your financial questions. Tom Mosley out of California, Prashant Sabapathy out of the nation's capital in Baltimore, Maryland, and out of Orlando, Florida, Chance Robinson. Gentlemen, always nice to have you. I want to start today with well, taxes isn't usually the most favorite topic, but it's because it's so important, and we usually deal with the tax situation in the rearview mirror. I want to kind of adjust that, why we always look back. And Chance, you always like to say, I want to go through the windshield. Tell me why that's so different.
Well, the whole point of this is to be proactive rather than reactive, you know. And this is a passionate topic. I don't know about for you guys, but when I sit in the practice, and this is such a passion of mine, to be able to sit down and provide real value where other advisors, you know, don't, you know, focus on all of these different holistic planning topics. So when I can sit down and kind of look at from a tax strategy and really start to understand and putting together this plan, it's like taking this puzzle and you dump it on the table and there's no picture to go off of. We just make the pieces fit together. And I get so passionate about that because when it starts to come together and we start looking at it from a tax perspective, a lot of people don't take these things into account. We're in a small window of time, knowing that tax changes are coming relatively soon. We know that's going to happen. It's already in legislation that it's going to take place. So having that ability to put this puzzle together and really take advantage to make a picture work, it's a dream come true every time.
Right. Right. It's what our people need. I mean, you know, people come in sometimes and they say, I don't have a plan. And then you focus in on taxes and they say, well, I don't have a tax plan. And I'm always quick to point out to them that they do have a tax plan. The government has one, and it's probably not the plan that's in their best interest. In fact, some of the software, some of the reports that we offer on this show can show people how much the government plan will cost them versus how much a plan that they put together proactively. And that's what we're talking about down the windshield. We want to look through not what we have to pay for last year, which is important, but we want to look and see what kind of taxes is my 401k, is my IRA, is if you're married, your spouse's IRA on top of that, what is that going to cost us through a 20 or 30-year retirement? And you need to know that because it will shock you sometimes how much tax you're going to have to pay.
Prashant, Chance alluded to this and said, you know what, the changes are coming. In 2025, we know the rules are going to change unless something happens, which leaves us to believe that we're in a good tax situation for some people right now?
Taxes right now are lower than they've been in a really long time. And I think we can all probably sit up here and agree that taxes are probably going to go up. I think one of the biggest almost lies that was sold to us is that we should take all of our retirement money and put it away in pre-tax retirement accounts so that we kick that tax can down the curb as long as possible. But that was because we all thought that our tax rate in retirement would actually be lower than it was while we were working. And with all the projections out there, with people thinking that taxes have to go up in the future, you know, all the pre-tax money that we saved is actually not going to be quite as beneficial for us. We talk all the time, Chance, you and I talk all the time about breaking up with the IRS. I love how you talk about that sometimes and what that can mean and how powerful it can be for the future.
And what that concept really is just saying, like, right now I'm in a relationship with the IRS, right? So if you're in a relationship with the IRS, with my 401k or my IRA or any of these situations, understanding that we know what they want in this relationship, approximately they're going to want, 20 to 22%. Obviously, that's going to depend on how much you have in that bucket, but in that partnership. So how do I make a plan for retirement to rely on that if I don't really know what I have access to. Because right now, we know they want that 20 to 22%. But what's it going to be in 2026 when they change that rate? Maybe they want 40%. Maybe they want 50%. I would rather take this opportunity now to say, hey, I will gladly break up with you at 22%. Right? And I'm going to look for some type of alternative that's going to help me along with that, and then have the strategy going forward. This is one of those classic conversations to where we've sat there and said, okay, I put $1 in today, and they say, you don't have to worry about paying taxes on it right now. When it grows to $5, we'll take our cut then, and we'll determine what that tax rate will be at that point.
Tom, I like what you say when you go into an elevator. You've told me this before. I get into an elevator and somebody says, what do you do? What do you say back to them?
Well, I tell them, I say, I work with people to make sure they never run out of income the rest of their life. And that's what I started doing when I first got into the business. But then over a period of time, I realized that the thing that was taking my people's money more than anything else was taxes. So we added on to that as a mission for our company to make sure they pay as little as they're legally required to pay in taxes. And to your point, Chance, when people come in and, everybody wants that number, that button, that certain amount they've saved, and they come in and they say, we're so happy, we have $1 million saved. And I have to point out to them, it's not all their money.
Right.
Because when you really start divvying it up into the years that you're going to spend in retirement, you've got to realize that the government's going to take their cut out of it.
Can we map this out?
Oh, 100%. I think the misconception starts to be, like we've all been saying, is it's going to be lower in retirement. However, we have to take into account, look at what's going on today. When we go to the grocery store, when we go to the gas station, cost is up. I can't take out the same amount that I was going to take out in the beginning. It's going to cost me more, and I'm going to have to take out more.
And so some of those solutions that are out there, you have to be looking at this from a holistic point of view. So you got to be exploring things like proactive IRA drawdown, things like Roth conversions, potentially using different sections of the tax code. And Chance said something earlier that I love, which is you have to create a holistic tax plan, because it's not just about taking the money at a higher tax rate in the future. It's also, what is that going to do to your income? How is that going to affect things like your Medicare premiums in the future, which I know not very many advisors are talking about right now? How much tax are you going to pay on your Social Security? All these things work together. And unless you get out in front of that and create a proactive plan, I think that you're falling behind.
Well, I think the rock that goes into the pond on this side, I grew up on a farm, okay? The rock that goes into a pond on this side of the pond, it ripples all the way across, like you say, Medicare, it ripples across capital gains, it ripples across all other of the areas of taxes. And the government's not going to tell you about it until when? March of the year following the time you made the mistake.
Gentlemen, appreciate it. Are you looking through the windshield, or are you looking behind? Call the number below. Scan the QR code. Receive the Wealth Council tax map and RMD report. Take advantage before the rules change. The Wealth Council returns after this.
There's so much going on in our world, but what are the biggest risks facing retirees today? When we come back, stay tuned.
Are you preparing to make your retirement funds work for you while not taking too much risk? While there is no substitute for sitting down with an independent financial advisor, why don't you learn the strategies of investing as well? Call for your free retirement investing guide from the Wealth Council right now to learn about investment strategies that align with your goals. Call for your free retirement investing guide from the Wealth Council right now. 844-463-3466. That's 844-463-3466.
Welcome back to the Wealth Council. I'm Brad Johansson with Chance Robinson out of Orlando, Florida, Brian Correnta out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Gentlemen, let's talk risk, shall we? Because this is one of those terms that can be all-encompassing. I can list a few of them. We go through longevity, inflation, market volatility. I can go on and on and on of things that I know are risky, but I don't know where it's going to fall into the bucket. You know what? It's just me. I'll do it myself, Chance. Have you heard this before?
Absolutely. I kind of relish at this fact when I hear this about, do it yourself. Don't get me wrong. You can attempt to do anything yourself, right? However, the whole point of working with an advisor is that experience of doing it. I often have to ask clients, how often do we get something perfectly done right the first time we've ever done it? And we all know that question.
Get a blank
is
stare
not-
coming
not
back
that
after that.
often, right?
Yes.
So the difference with working with an advisor, myself, for instance, and Brian as well, we've been doing this for quite some time, 17 years myself. So seeing 200, 250 clients a year, planning out 200 retirements for 17 years. I mean, you do the math. You start to learn where the potholes are at on the road and where the construction's going on and how to navigate around these things. This is the difference between having the old road map that you got at the gas station or having the GPS that's telling you where the traffic's at, where the speed traps are at, what is happening here. I got to navigate through these things.
Yes.
Quarter century for you on this.
Yeah, almost 25 years of planning. So I see it every single year, and we'll see the mistakes made over and over because people don't really realize that there's a difference between a retirement plan and an investment plan. A retirement plan is completely different. You mentioned some risk at the beginning here.
Yeah.
But the 5 key areas that people have to make sure are handled correctly is their income strategy, their tax strategy, their investment strategy, their healthcare strategy, and their estate planning strategy. And if you get any one of those 5 wrong, the whole thing blows up. Because,
How so?
well, let's take income, for example. So for most people retiring today are not going to receive a pension. So most people retire with a 401k plan. That means they have to distribute the money, or if they need income, they have to take the money out of the 401k.
Okay.
That's taxable. So when it's taxable, let's say you need $1,000 a month and tax rates are at 20%. Okay, you net $800. But the IRS can change the rules in the middle of the game and increase tax rates whenever they want. Matter of fact, they're going to sunset in 2025. So what happens if now tax rates go to 30%? So just through taxation alone, your income would drop to $700 because now your $1,000 is taxed at 30%. So now you're only getting $700 a month. That alone decreases your purchasing power. So just getting the tax strategy wrong affects the income because we could create a strategy with proper planning that creates tax-free income for people.
Well, and then when we're looking at that, now let's talk about, okay, now that, let's say I still need that $1,000, which means I have to bring out a little bit more.
That's right.
Does that push me into
Yes.
another bracket? And does that now cause my Social Security to get taxed at a higher level? Does that cause my Medicare to get, increased in premium in my Medicare? Is that going to mess up spousal benefits? I mean, there's so many intricate details that we have to pay attention to as advisors. Like I said, planning it for, 200 of them a year for a number of years, you learn these things.
But I go for years, decades in accumulation mode.
Yeah.
And I need to be in accumulation mode to get to retirement, don't I?
Well, so yes, but when you get ready to retire, about 5 years from retirement, you have to shift to a completely different way of thinking. The fundamentals change. You go from growing your money to now the number one priority is protecting it and making sure that it starts working for you. Think about it. We've all saved for one reason, for our money to start working for us. Now, how are you going to get that money to work for you, and how are you going to make a plan that's completely reliable regardless of the volatility of the market? Most people have a plan that requires the market to cooperate 100% of the time for them to be successful.
That's my portfolio, right?
Yeah, but what happens when the market doesn't cooperate? What are you going to do? What happens if you have a health event and you get sick and you have to pull money out because you haven't protected yourself there? Or you die and you don't have things set up correctly and the IRS becomes your largest beneficiary, not your family. These are the mistakes that people make over and over again in retirement because the only thing they know how to do is save money in a 401k plan or a 403b, whatever it might be. No one's ever taught them how to retire. And the big box firms don't teach retirement, they teach investing.
What I find interesting is that a lot of times I'll sit down with people and they'll tell me all the time they've spent more time in their lifetime planning out vacations than they've ever spent planning for their retirement.
Yeah.
This is the vacation for the rest of your life. If you don't have a solid plan, what do you have?
Right.
You have a plan? Call the number below, scan the QR code. The Wealth Council will provide a written financial plan for you, preparing a specific plan with no stone unturned that's directly and specifically for you. Call the number on your screen. Scan the QR code. Get your plan in place now. The Wealth Council continues after this.
Up next, serving his country to serving retirees. Hear Chance Robinson's story about his time in the Army taught him the importance of strong leadership and a good team. You won't want to miss this. Stay tuned.
Think of how much you've saved in your 401k, 403b, or TSP retirement accounts, okay? You have that number? Great. Now, subtract 20 to 30% from that number for taxes. That's how much you actually have saved. Call the Wealth Council at 844-463-3466 right now for your free retirement tax guide. Your 2024 tax guide is free for the viewers of the Wealth Council, so call now, 844-463-3466, or scan the QR code below from your smartphone camera.
Welcome back to the Wealth Council. I'm Brad Johansson with Chance Robinson out of Orlando, Florida. We're spotlighting Chance today. I know it's about 17 years you've been in the business, but your history goes way back that kind of takes you into this. I want to get into that as maybe a college football player at that point.
Yeah. So I grew up there in Trenton, Florida, which nobody's ever heard of, but is right below Gainesville,
All right.
where the Gators play. And I grew up going to school there. I wanted to go play football for the University of Miami. I always thought they had a good team, but they weren't great, so I'd stand out as a really good player and
Be
get
that
drafted
guy.
to the league. You know, that was the goal. I did get offered a couple of scholarships to go play football, and I wound up taking one to NC State. So I didn't get into the Gator Chomp or the Knowles. You know, it's go Wolfpack for me.
How about you?
I go there to play free safety and get my degree in digital filmmaking.
How about that?
That's what it was. So I finished up that degree there, decided I needed a real degree. So I decided I was going to go back and get one in accounting and finance afterwards.
There was military involved in this too, wasn't there?
So right when I got done with school is right when September 11th happened.
Oh my.
So me being me, I decided I'm going to go down to the recruiting station there in Raleigh, North Carolina. I told them, look, I understand everything that's going on. I know you guys are going to need people. You give me a job and I'll get it done. Doesn't really matter what it is. Now, if I have my way, I don't want to be behind a desk pushing papers or staring at a computer screen all day, but anything else you need, I'll get it done. So
You joined with who?
the recruiter was an Army recruiter at the time. So he tells me, go down, you're going to take the ASFAB. We'll see how you score and we'll talk about what you qualify for. So I go take the ASFAB and I come back and he says, well, you scored quite high. You actually qualify for military intelligence. Why don't you take a look at some of these? So knowing what I know now, the bell should have been going off right then, right? Military and intelligence don't quite go together in the same sentence that often. No, but jokingly, seriously, we get to scrolling down a list of job descriptions. So I'm looking at different MOSs and we get to a 98 kilo, which was a satellite signal collection identification analyst. Sounds extremely exciting,
Yes,
right?
it does.
The exciting part was a $50,000 sign-on bonus and 17 weeks of training in Pensacola, Florida. So I said, okay, you guys are gonna send me to a beach, put money in my pocket, and send me to a beach to do all of my training back home in Florida. I'm sold. Let's go. Show me where I sign up.
You did that, which leads you to this for 17 years. How does that get to here?
So in the military, being in Intel, it was a new MOS that year. So I spent a lot of time traveling. I went to Denver, I went to Alaska, a couple little towns there, went back to Fort Bragg. Once it was time to get out of the military, I decided I liked the winter back in Florida more than everywhere else I had been so far. So I get back to Florida, and that's when I got into financial services. I actually started out with a small firm by the name of JP Morgan. And that wasn't my cup of tea. That lasted all of maybe 4 weeks. That was so think about the timing. Right after September 11th, we go through a couple of years when I joined the military, gets out. This is right before the markets start to crash for the 06, 07 time frame. So I get into the industry that time. So my first 2 years was navigating all in down times.
You've navigated professional or college sports at a high level, Division I level. Now the military. How fulfilling has this been to do financial advising now?
Yeah, this is one of the greatest things in my life, because throughout life, what I've learned was I really enjoy educating, right? So being able to educate people and see the impact that I can really make on someone's life in their retirement, and learning how to really navigate it correctly and holistically, it brings me no greater joy.
You've been changing lives for a long time. Chance, good to have you.
Thank you.
Good to have you with the Wealth Council, which returns after this.
A modern retirement survey tells us Americans are worried about their financial picture in retirement. Find out why after this. Stay tuned.
Are Are you preparing to make your retirement funds work for you while not taking too much risk? While there is no substitute for sitting down with an independent financial advisor, why don't you learn the strategies of investing as well? Call for your free retirement investing guide from the Wealth Council right now to learn about investment strategies that align with your goals. Call for your free retirement investing guide from the Wealth Council right now. 844-463-3466. That's 844-463-3466.
Welcome back to the Wealth Council. I'm Brad Johansson, joined by Stuart Willis and by Prashant Sabapathy. Gentlemen, it's always nice to have you, but we talk about concerns all the time. I'm sorry, we can't get away from it. Retirement concerns. I'm going to go to the latest study by the AAG, this one just coming out this year, that inflation costs are causing great concern. I mean, this is no surprise that this study is coming out. But I go through some of the numbers that a third of older Americans believe that they will outlive their money. Then I go to 40% of the seniors believe that their generation had a harder time achieving retirement than their parents did. Something you're finding, Prashant, as well?
Absolutely. And I think that's because retirement used to be like a three-legged stool almost, right? It used to be that you got 1/3 of your retirement from a pension if you worked for the same employer for 25, 30 years. You got another third from Social Security. And so all you had to do was just deal with one part of it, the personal savings. But
easy.
As pensions have started to go away, Social Security is making up a smaller part of the retirement income pie. There's more responsibility placed on the pre-retiree to save enough money and make that money last into retirement. And so it's really created what I call the wealth effect. You know, in our area, we're seeing more millionaires and multimillionaires coming in asking for, how do I make my retirement savings last the rest of my lifetime?
This then takes us into the fear mode, Stuart, of what we're seeing with most people coming in at this point.
Yeah, and I think retirement is about being able to enjoy the time you have without worrying about running out of money. Now, obviously that, sounds kind of pie in the sky, but at the end of the day, you need to have a plan that's very clear. And I think most financial advisors have done the least amount of work necessary to get paid. And part of a very important financial plan is having a cash flow plan as well. And what we mean by that is there's some fantastic software out there that are available to financial advisors that allow you to illustrate out, assumed rate of returns. For example, let's just say that, we have a 4% rate of return assumption, super conservative for the rest of your life, okay? We want to know that if you have a big event come up in your life, you need to buy a car or pay for a wedding or do something, that you're still going to be okay. Because it's funny, what I see, the people that worry the most are actually the people with the most money. It's the weirdest irony, but it's because, remember, those are the people that have done their job. They've put money away. They're worriers. They're savers. Those people just need to understand. They need a clear path to retirement to know that they're going to be okay, and then they'll have a whole different level of enjoyment.
I want to go back to another number, Prashant, because you said, this used to be, it was always divvied up. One of the things that came out of the study, a third of modern retirees do not feel their employer did enough to help them obtain the retirement that they worked for. Oh, you laugh right off.
Absolutely, because it goes back to that idea of pension benefits and the idea of having a secure income that you can count on every month, every year for the rest of your life. That has almost gone extinct in this day and age. And so think about this. We're in a day and age today where you could actually spend more time in retirement than you actually spent working. Okay, and that's unbelievable to me. And when you had a pension, that was not a huge thing to have to overcome. But when you don't have that security of a guaranteed income coming in every month, and now you got to make your own money, recreate that paycheck through volatile markets, volatility with interest rates, it makes it a really scary thing to have to go through.
Stuart, with your children, I'm going to say one more thing here, because the study says that 80% of seniors don't think the next generation is going to be able to retire comfortably.
Yeah, I've talked about my kid quite a bit here on the show in previous episodes. But look, I've got a kid. He's at UCLA having a great time, the time of his life. And look, I look at the credit card bills, right? Amazon, Venmo, all of these sort of, very easy, buttons that you push to get things done. and they just don't understand the cost because there's no implication to it, right? And I think that the seniors are really, they're onto something. When they're concerned that the next generation isn't going to be able to figure it out, I think they've got some legitimate concerns there because, at least in our case, listen, my son is a business economics major. He had no idea what a dividend was, of all things. I feel like I failed, and that's what I do for a living, right? But school never taught them. It's a different environment now.
This is a bottom line. You have to, wherever you are, this generation, that generation, next generation, you have to have a plan.
You have to have a plan. You have to understand where your income is going to come from each and every month and year for the rest of your lifetime. You have to adjust that to account for inflation and the threat of rising taxes. I think once you understand where the money in, money out kind of dynamic comes from and what that looks like, that's what gives you a sense of comfort and stability as you head for retirement.
Gentlemen, thank you. If you'd like to receive the Wealth Counsel written financial plan, call the number below, scan the QR code, and the Wealth Counsel continues after this.
For your free Social Security maximization guide from the Wealth Counsel, call 844-463-3466. Taking part in getting the most from your Social Security with this guide costs you nothing. Not taking part can cost you and your spouse a lot. Discover strategies that fit your unique situation and help you make the most of every dollar. Call for your free Social Security maximization guide from the Wealth Counsel, 844-463-3466, or scan the QR code below from your smartphone camera.
Now, we've talked about top risks facing your retirement, top retiree concerns, and looking through the windshield instead of in a rearview mirror. Now, most importantly, we have talked about building a plan with the right team. The Wealth Counsel is your team to answer all your questions and create a retirement masterpiece you've always dreamed of painting. Call us now for an appointment or your personalized written financial plan. We're here to help. And we're so glad you joined us. I'm Brad Johansson, and this is the Wealth Counsel.